All right, so if you're running CJC-1295 with that or even HGH and you've been running it for months and months without paying any attention to what's happening inside of your body, then I want you to listen to this because I've made the mistake of pushing these compounds way too hard. And I'm going to tell you exactly what happened to me, what I look out for now, and what I personally do differently. So as you guys know, my name is Rockzilla. I originally got into these compounds after my time in the Marines. I was dealing with tons of injuries, and I was trying to find a way to recover, to train harder, and to continue progressing. Then I got into bodybuilding, and I started realizing that some of these compounds could make it easier for me to achieve certain goals. And over time, I became somebody who started pushing the boundaries and kind of testing my own limits because I wanted to better understand how these compounds worked, how my body responded to them, and how they could potentially help people achieve their goals. Now, before anybody takes this the wrong way, all right, I'm not claiming to be a doctor, all right? I'm not here, this is not medical advice at all. I'm sharing my personal experience and the information that I've learned along the way so that you can educate yourself and have a conversation, with someone to help you achieve your goals. And if you're interested in peptides, performance, recovery, body composition, and actually understanding what you're putting into your body, then definitely make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to be doing a breakdown on this stuff from the perspective of somebody who's actually experimented with these compounds. Now, I'm going to tell you what happened whenever I pushed them too far. So on my third cycle of running Tesamorelin, everything was fine. I felt good, I was sleeping good, I was training hard, I was getting the results that I wanted. So naturally, I started pushing things. I increased the dose, I increased it again, and honestly, I got way too aggressive with it. I ended up pushing the Tesa dose to about 4 milligrams per night. I overdid the CJC with that as well, but I'll talk about that later. And this is because I wanted to see how far I could actually take it. And that's when things started changing. Started getting side effects like cold sweats, started getting numbness, tingling. My joints started hurting like crazy. My sleep was getting worse and worse. And the crazy part is none of this was happening the first cycle, the second cycle, or even the beginning of the third cycle. Everything was good in the beginning, but it wasn't until, I kept pushing the dose higher and harder that I started to see more side effects. And that taught me something that I think a lot more people need to hear. More is not always better, all right? You don't have to keep increasing your dose just because you aren't experiencing the side effect yet, all right? And you definitely don't need to try to run 4 milligrams a night like I did. I personally wouldn't advise you to copy, that method. Now, I was pushing the limits on myself because I wanted to understand what would happen. And I learned that the hard way, that you can't push these pathways too far. So there's a couple things that you should look out for. First, pay attention to water retention as well, okay? So if you're holding a lot more water than you normally do, especially if it becomes persistent, then don't just ignore that sign. Pay attention to joint pain. If your joints start hurting, more than normal, that's something that I would take serious. Pay attention to numbness and tingling in your fingers and in your joints. If you start waking up and your hands are numb, or you start getting that pins and needles type of feeling, again, I would not brush that off. Our body sends the signs. And definitely pay attention to your sleep, okay? If your sleep starts getting worse, then especially after you've started increasing the dose on something, it may be something to look into. And the most important thing, in my opinion, is gonna be your blood sugar, all right? So compounds that increase growth hormone and IGF-1 activity can affect glucose regulation, all right? So you don't wanna be I'm getting leaner so everything is good type of person. Like, you can still look great on the outside and be messed up on the inside. That's literally a lot of bodybuilders out there, all right? And that's why I get blood work. I get mine every 2 months because I experiment with a lot of different compounds, all right? I'm not telling you that you need to copy me, all right? So if you're gonna talk to someone about your blood work, one of the first things I want you to understand is IGF-1, okay? Because if you're using something that affects the growth hormone and IGF-1 pathway, I want to know what that number is. You wanna know what that number is. I'd also want to know what my fasting glucose is. I'd want to know what my HbA1c is, because fasting glucose gives you a snapshot, while HbA1c gives you a picture of your average blood sugar over the previous months. And depending on your individual situation, that person may want to look at things like your thyroid, your cholesterol, triglycerides, liver markers, kidney markers, and some of your other labs. Now, I'm not telling you that you need to order every test under the sun, What I'm saying is that, you might need to have that conversation with someone to see what makes sense for you, because your baseline does matter. Your health history matters. Your medications matter. Genetics matter. And more importantly, your response matters. And that's something that people completely forget whenever they watch someone like me on, TikTok or Instagram talking about peptides. You are not me, and I am not you, all right? The dose somebody else tolerates doesn't mean your body is going to tolerate it the same way. And that's exactly one of the biggest lessons that I can say I learned from pushing these compounds as far as I push them. Now, if you're enjoying this video, do me a favor, hit that like button, and definitely make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to keep talking about these compounds from the perspective of someone who's actually experimented with them, instead of pretending like I know everything, okay? I'm just sharing my perspective. Now, here's what I personally changed after my experience. Instead of trying to stay on these compounds, indefinitely, I found that, personally, I found that using, them in like 2 to 3 month intervals has been, more effective for me, and also for a lot of my clients. Now, I'm not saying that that's a medical protocol that you need to follow. I'm not telling you that that's what you need to do. I'm just telling you that that's the approach that I personally found more comfortable and has been very effective for my clients. And honestly, I wish I had understood that before I started experimenting, going higher and higher with these doses, all right? You don't have to, try to see how much you can tolerate. You don't have to, try to chase the highest dose possible. And you definitely don't need to do anything stupid like I did and work up to 4 milligrams every night, all right? I push Tessa high, I push CJC with DAC extremely high, and I learned from it, okay? But again, that CJC with DAC video is gonna be for another time, all right? The goal is to get the result that you want while minimizing unnecessary problems. And if you start noticing swelling, joint pain, numbness, tingling, sleep issues, changes in your blood sugar, noticing that you're urinating, like if you start noticing these things, then it's very important that you don't overlook them, and you speak to someone and figure out what's actually going on, because symptoms don't always tell you exactly what's causing them. And that's another reason why I believe that blood work is so important when you're touching the IGF and the GH. Now, I do want to talk about tesamorelin specifically. So tesamorelin increases IGF-1, and it can affect glucose regulation. And that doesn't mean that Tessa automatically gives you diabetes. It also doesn't mean that everyone who takes it is going to have a problem. It means that your response may be something worth monitoring, and that's very important, especially if you're using it for months at a time. Like I know people who've been on it for 6 months, but have never gotten blood work, all right? The clinical data, shows that people use it for 26 weeks, and then some people use it for 52 weeks, and it was fine and dandy. So I'm not telling you that 4 months automatically means that you've been on it for too long. What I'm saying is that just because something has been studied for a certain amount of time doesn't mean that your response is guaranteed to be the same as the people who underwent the study. And that's why I care more about, your numbers and, you getting some blood work than, what everyone else is doing. And the same thing goes for HGH. HGH can affect IGF-1 and insulin sensitivity. It can also be associated with things like water retention, joint pain, numbness, and other side effects. So if you're using HGH, you start experiencing those things, don't just assume that that's part of the game. It's not. And the same thing goes with CJC-1295 with that. All right, this is another one where I think people need to be very careful, because it can increase growth hormone, IGF-1, and the feeling and results that you get from it is not as black as white as a lot of people online make it seem. But as I mentioned, I'll make another video about my experience pushing that to the extreme. And that's the biggest message that I want you to take from this. Stop comparing your body to somebody else's protocol, all right? Stop thinking that, using more is actually better, and stop ignoring side effects because you don't want to lose your results. If you decide that you want to use something that affects the growth hormone and IGF-1 pathway, make sure you educate yourself. Know what you're taking, know what the potential side effects are, pay attention to your body, get some blood work, know your numbers, because I would much rather have somebody watch this video and say, I'm gonna go get blood work, than say, Rockzilla did 4 milligrams, so I'm gonna try it. All right, that's not something that you should do at all. So do your research, get your blood work, because I experiment with, these compounds, and I know what's happening inside my body instead of just assuming everything is fine just because I look good and I feel good. Now, I hope this video helped you. Hit the like button and subscribe, because I'm gonna keep breaking this stuff down without all of the extra BS that people include in there. And if you wanna go deeper make sure you join my school community. That's where I can break down these compounds, talk about them more in detail, talk about the things that I personally experienced, and talk about the mistakes that I made along the way. All right, I'm here to help you understand what you're getting yourself into. I've made the mistakes. I pushed the doses too high. I've experienced side effects, and I crawled so that you can walk. Now, I hope that you found some value in this. Again, if you need any sense of direction, there's a bunch of links, free guides, and a bunch of resources in my bio.